on the for all you listeners that are listening instead of watching, our patrons are now trying to re-find us. They do it pretty quick. I'm actually pretty impressed how quickly they all pop out and pop back in, especially because it seems to be so difficult for you to find us live on YouTube ever.
I can't ever find us.
I know. See how long still we have 0 concurrent viewers right now. 0. Oh, Josh is here. Howdy, Josh. Christy's here. Yay. Janet is in the bathroom right now. She's been there for a while. We don't know what she's doing. Hey, Holly. Hey, Amy. I don't know what Zach's doing.
Sorry, I was reading. It sounds like I have to be in a commercial tonight.
A commercial?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
They're filming a commercial?
Yeah.
Like for the TVs?
I don't know what it's for.
They're going to be famous.
No. I'm going to be in a commercial. They're different.
Famous commercial. I hope they're paying you well to be in that commercial.
Yeah, let's see.
Probably for the low price of $0.
Yep.
Hey,
Sorry.
Erica.
I will be
Brian's back.
I will be there. Yeah, I don't know. They just said be there at 6. Call time at 6 tonight.
I got to go back out there. I left my phone out there. So sorry.
That's fine.
I knew something was going to go wrong. I was like, oh, that was easy.
No,
Put a bunch of treats in a little ball. It's going to go. And then I came back in here and looked around and was like,
nope,
oh,
that's
no,
right.
I need my phone.
We made the switch to the public YouTube while you were gone.
Great.
Tool Girl, I either have a bigger bladder or it's because I'm sub 40. So next month I'll have to pee a lot.
I feel like you just don't drink very much. I don't know what's happening.
I drink a lot. I constantly have a drink.
Yeah, I don't know why you never have to pee. I pee 100 times a day.
No, I don't have to pee that much. I must have a big bladder.
But
I'm also sub 40. I'm going with that one.
Well, to be fair, it's in the morning, and when we start this, I just got back from the gym. So usually I had 2 cups of coffee, a bottle of water, and then my pre-workout, and then 2 bottles of water at the gym, and then more coffee, and then an energy drink. But then we start this. It's going through me. Not only is there a bunch of water, there's a bunch of caffeine too, which is a diuretic.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So stop calling me old.
You're just older than I am. Yes, I will be 40 next month. Cool girl.
Speaking of which, I this afternoon I have an eye appointment, so I can get prescriptions that work for my eyes now.
So you can see again?
Yeah. Did I tell you that, Janet? That since last year when I finally got the contacts and the glasses and everything. Yeah, my prescription's gotten worse, and now I can't see through those.
Oh.
So only my right eye. And that's actually, so this is the third, I'm going to a different place. This is the third eye doctor I've been to.
Wow.
I'm going this afternoon. Because it seems crazy to me that it's just my right eye.
Your eyes are dying.
Aw.
Well, that's basically what they told me last year. I'm like, what's wrong? Am I dying? What's wrong with my eye? They're like, oh, well, they lasted you 44 years. I mean,
pretty good run.
Yeah, that's a pretty good run. He's like, what do they say? They're like, you wouldn't drive a car for 44 years, were you? Shit wears out. I'm like, yeah, you're a doctor?
Unless you're offering me new eyes. Unless you are offering me a new set of eyes when you say that, don't bring that up. What the fuck?
Yeah. You get about 44 good years out of those eyes.
Actual fuck.
Yeah.
I hope that he said shit wears out. Like, I hope that's the term. Shit wears out.
Yeah. When I tell the story on stage, that's what he said.
There you go. There you go.
But yeah, I'm super. So I actually got an eye appointment for next Wednesday. And then Becky called me this morning and she's like, hey, I just got an appointment for 4:00 today. And they said there's another one at 4:10 because there was people canceled. And so Becky and I are going together. Hear me out. I need people in the chat and you guys. So I'm going to get another pair of glasses, another pair of progressives. I'm thinking about going with the clear plastic frame.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys?
I like that. I like a clear plastic frame.
I
have a pair like that I don't ever wear.
I see people in them.
Yeah.
I see people in them, and like some people, I'm like, that looks really good. Like they're.
It could go either way. I agree.
What just happened when I just stammered through that was me trying not to talk like Erica, because I almost just said like they eat with that. I'm like, I gotta stop spending so much time around this person.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
They eat with that.
Yeah. If they say you ate, then that's good.
Kaylin, that's
apparently.
probably true about the tattooing and not taking bathroom breaks.
I
mean, I've
like
only
that. I
tattooed
think
for
that's.
20
I thought
years,
that was
Yeah.
some good. That was some good detective at work right there.
Mhm.
I also can't sneeze
Yeah.
because of tattooing. So.
Yeah, but you'd also think that I sit in a room and
Yeah.
podcast for long periods of time. You think I'd get used to not peeing also, but I don't.
Yeah, but you
Correct.
don't
Just
have
do
to. You have the ability to stop and record.
Mhm.
And
That's
I
true.
didn't know. The only reason, the thing that surprises me most about finding out that they're not working for you is that I would have imagined you would have bitched about it a lot sooner than right now.
My
The fact that
glasses?
you haven't, the fact that you haven't brought it up in a minute led me to believe that everything was fine, because otherwise we feel like we would never stop hearing about
It's
it.
not debilitating at this point. It's like
Okay.
it's like so like because I wear my progressives more. The contacts have just pretty much like that. It's just not working for me. So I haven't worn my contacts in a while. But
Got
I've just been wearing my glasses, the progressives, and like I can read them now. But it's like I notice like if I close my left eye, even with my glasses, I still can't read anything.
Got it.
So it's
That's
I
not good.
want to get them fixed.
mine's the 23rd, guys. I'm going to talk to the fan. You guys talk to each other. I'm going to talk
Oh
to
my
people in the
God.
chat.
Well, I just want to thank Veronica. She said I could rock the clear glasses.
Everybody
Thanks,
else is talking about
Veronica.
August birthdays, so I'm just telling you my birthday.
The
While you
23rd.
guys.
Well, now
continue.
everybody's gonna you know how old you are. Now everybody's gonna be able to steal your identity.
Sweet.
Yep.
Good luck.
That's how it works.
Good luck,
Yeah.
guys. You can only help me.
Yeah. But that was the thing with the clear glasses for me is like I see people wearing them. I see some people, I'm like, those look awesome. Like I could wear those. And then I see other people wearing them. I'm like, no, sir.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, am
Yeah.
I going to be one of those guys? Or am I one
Well,
of the
I hope. Let me tell you one thing I'm sure of. Your wife is absolutely going to tell you the truth.
what does she know?
Don't you do? I know that you do not want to be walking around wearing a pair of glasses where every time Becky looks at you, she just goes, "Take those off."
Yeah, take those. Well, the thing was, she was
I'd
like
rather
that
you
when I
not be
got
able
my
to
other
see.
glasses, and that was
Yeah.
just from her being with me for 13 years without glasses. When I started wearing my glasses, she's like, I don't. You need contacts. I can't do this. I can't do you in glasses. But now
Were
I'm
you like, I had no idea how beautiful you were until I got glasses.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
But now I think she's used to them because I wear the black heavy frame Ray-Ban ones. I wear those most of the time now because I have another pair where the prescription's a little better,
Mm-hmm.
but they're heavy. They hurt my nose. Like by the end of the day, I'm
Yeah,
just like, ugh.
I hate that. I hate that. I have a pair of glasses like that I love them and I love the way they look, and I wear them for 15 minutes and I'm like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Like
'cause they
somehow
hurt
I
my
managed
face.
to forget how heavy and uncomfortable these are
Yeah.
every time that I put them back on.
Tara, that's encouraging. She said that people with darker skin tones look better in clear glasses because that's what I was wondering. Is like because I'm pretty, I don't know if you can tell, I'm pretty tan most of the time.
Mhm.
So I'm like, is being tan going to make them better or worse? According to Tara, better. We'll see.
How about if you have a real wide head? Does that help?
Yeah. What if you have
A big what if your ego
what if
is
you have
wide?
a big ginger beard and a bald spot?
Listen, if you can't tell how wide my head is, you can see both arms of my glasses at the same time.
Oh,
They go
interesting. Now that you're saying that, I never would have thought about it or noticed it. But
Yeah.
now,
Yep.
well.
So I want to quote this. Liz says, "Quote: My Patsy ass son looks
Pasty.
great."
Pasty.
Oh, pasty ass son.
Oh my
looks
God,
great.
that was Viola part 2. Oh my God. Hey everyone, I'm Viola's sister Patsy. How is everybody? Hello, Bob. You do need glasses, right, Viola? Excuse me, let me get over here. Oh, hi, Bob.
But it's
I
always good to see
understand
you,
that you
Viola.
misread something.
Yeah,
It's great to see everybody.
You know why? Because I'm not wearing my glasses.
I know it's because you're not wearing your glasses.
The good news is you guys should be able to like critique them next week because the place we're going is called iMart Express, and their whole thing is like same day glasses. So like apparently you could like get your glass like they're ready in an hour.
Faster than
Isn't
Taco
that
Bell.
Lens Crafters kind of too, or no?
I've never been in Lens Crafters. I
Bob
don't
is
know.
gonna
Lens Crafters
order
was like ready
glasses.
in an hour. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, could be.
Bob's going to order glasses and get them faster than his Taco Bell order.
Probably. Although I don't know because like I need progressives and that feels like it's going to take longer, right? I don't know.
Just by virtue of the name themselves, it takes a it's a
It's a
progressive
progression.
process.
It's a progression. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be great if the shape is right. Well, when I was
Shape
there,
has a lot to do with it.
well, when I was there with Bella a couple weeks ago, it's probably been a month ago. I was like looking while I was waiting for her to come out of her appointment, and they only had one pair of the clear ones. So we'll see. But I put them on and looked in the mirror, and I'm like, you look good, even though you don't have a prescription right now and you can't actually see yourself.
Uh-huh.
But the blurry shape that I'm
Yeah.
seeing in the mirror looks like it looks good. You do not want progressives done. That's what I'm worried about,
Yeah.
Susan, is because so I have 3 different pairs of progressives that I gotten over the last year. And you know that they give you the option some places, like, do you want your focal point to be like the narrow one, or for a little more it can be wider, for a little more it can be wider than that. I like those Ray-Bans too because they're the real wide ones and they don't make me feel drunk all the time. Becky ordered a pair from that place you and Michelle get them sometimes.
Yeah,
online. Yeah, and she got them real quick and she put them on. She's like, I don't like, and I was like, you just got to get used to them, Becky. And I put hers on. I'm like, oh no, it's just like you feel like you're in a fishbowl on the sides and stuff all the time.
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Amy says, do not get progressives in an hour. My doctor warned me about
Makes
that.
sense.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Well, you guys just ruined my whole fucking day. Thank you guys. Everybody, no way you get progressives.
Yeah.
You know, I'm fine with it. I'm hoping that they will say, since they're progressives, it's going to take a day or two, which is fine with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I would rather have that and then have a pair of glasses that don't work. We need to start the show.
We sure do.
We sure do. So for the pre-gamers, we're going to go ahead and end this. Pre-gamers, we love you guys and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, pre-gamers.
The tribe has spoken.
Idiot.
We talked about Survivor for 40
Yeah.
minutes. Like
True.
that was a good one.
But I still don't know what that means.
It
I've never
doesn't
seen
matter.
it.
They know.
Never seen it. Optometrists aren't MTs. No way the progressive. Okay, I'm just catching before we get going here. You know, I had the blue raspberry one was the only one left that I was saving for you, but then it was the only one I had left in the fridge. So then I drank it. Fuck you. The blue raspberry is good. I was thinking it was going to be like too sweet. It wasn't.
No, I like blue.
It tastes blue.
Some say you should save it for Zach, no matter what.
Could have, but I did not. Suppose I got a whole case of them coming now. I asked for lots of the citrus blast one because that's my favorite. Also the cherry limeade. We should start the show. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, we're doing it. That's what we're doing. 100%.
Right here, record.
Recording.
1, 2, 3.
Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning in to Truth and Justice. I'm Zach Weaver, and you are listening to the Friday follow-up for Season 15, Episode 3, The Alibi. This week, we went through the details of Jody's alibi. We also got to hear from Jody themselves. This episode raised a lot of questions, and Bob, Janet, and I are going to do our best to get them all answered. Before we get into that, Bob, do we have anything we want to address off the top?
First thing, Janet, I know I asked you to make a note of this, but I remembered all by myself.
Nice.
Because I forgot last week. We need to, so every season we have our amazing team of volunteer transcribers that transcribe all of the episodes for us. And usually most seasons, somebody who is like in regular communication with the person in prison will actually like print and mail the transcripts to them so they can read what's happening in the case. And so I was talking to Erica Cantor, who's kind of running the transcription team now, to see if there's anybody that can do that. Erica has volunteered to do it, but I told her that I wanted to put it out to see if anybody, because I know there's so many that are always looking for a way to help, because there's some expense involved too. And I'm happy to reimburse people for postage if they want to do that. But I wanted to put it out there. If there's anybody that would like to take up that job, to print out the transcripts and mail them to Jody in prison, shoot us an email or a message and let us know. Like I said, Erica said she's willing to do it, but she's already doing so much that I just don't want to put that much more on her, because she's transcribing episodes. She's kind of helping organize that whole process. Tool Girl in the chat already says I'll do it. Great. Tool Girl, shoot me an email. Anybody else shoot a message, because maybe we can split the workload up a little bit too. It's not a lot of work, but like I said, there's a little time and expense, because every week, whenever the transcripts get done, you've got to print them out, you got to package them physically, mail them to the prison. And you can't do, Jody said they can't get like big bulk mail. Like you can't send them a whole big batch of them all at once. They said like 15, 20 pages is fine. But if you send like a 50-page bundle, they'll reject it. They'll consider that bulk mail, and because they have to review it before they give it to them. So they have to get like mailed one episode at a time. So yeah, shoot us. And Tara Betts, thank you, Tara, also says she's here in Michigan and can do it. Might be cheaper for postage. Yeah, so guys, shoot us an email, theories@truthandjusticepod.com, if you are interested in helping out with that. Seems like we got a bunch of people that are, and that'll be great, because I want Jody to read what's going on, and I'm dying to talk to them right now too, because they're on lockdown. They're like, I got a message last
Oh.
week that said there's a lot of violence in the unit and they're threatening lockdown, and so they don't know when they'll be able to talk to me again. And so some of the questions that you guys have coming up, I've been trying to get the answers for, but I'm not just waiting for Jody to get back with me about that. So there was something else I was going to say. Don't remember what it was. So I guess we'll continue on with whatever. What other notes do you have, Janet?
I don't have anything other than just us diving into probably our own thoughts about the episode and then getting into the listener questions.
That sounds good. I was hoping because there was something else at the top of my mind that was a for sure housekeeping thing.
The only thing you asked me to remember was the transcription stuff.
Yeah, and then it popped out. Okay. Yeah. What do you guys think? Alibi.
First, forget the alibi at the moment. It was great to hear from Jody.
Yes.
That was huge. So I'm very happy that they were able to speak with us, speak with you. We could hear their story. That was
time. So I realized I just asked you to start talking, and I just remembered the thing.
perfect.
I don't think anyone's surprised.
You reminded me.
Good.
The other thing I wanted to mention is I kind of forgot to write it into the episode in the last segment when Jody was talking about their biography. And people were asking about helping with stamps and stuff like that, so that they could do it. They have sent it to me. I have 100 emails from Jody because they could only send them like one page at a time. So we have those now in our JPay inbox. And so what we're planning to do, we just haven't had the time to get it done. Also, we've been having a computer issue in the office here. Is Erica's going to take all those, like, copy and paste them into a document, because we got to get them. Jody sent them in order, but they didn't come in order, so we got to go through and like get them all ordered, get them into one document, and then I want to publish that for Jody so that'll be available to everyone. So that is coming. I had a couple people, Kathy said, they're willing to help do the editing work. I appreciate it. I have to get into my JPay account and copy and paste them. And so, like, once we've that's the whole job. So, like, once we do that, for me to copy and paste it and send it to you, there's nothing left to do. So we're going to take care of that. And the last thing that I also want to say is I was out to dinner last night with it's actually Erica's parents who are listening, and they just wanted to they were talking about the case documents, where we find them. And I told her, like, the website's in the credits, but just now up front, just let everybody, if anybody's looking for the case documents on our website is truthandjusticepod.com. So if you go to truthandjusticepod.com, right, there's a splash screen right at the beginning that'll ask you if you want to go to the case documents. And with that, what else did you have, Zach?
Perfect. Past hearing from Jody, I mean, the episode was broke down really well. It's really interesting to hear the alibi that was brought up, and all the all the people that kind of confirmed what we were believing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of questions that I think I can jump into, but that's what I have at the moment.
Okay.
That look says that you are looking at me to say how I felt, because even though people listening to this podcast orally and would not know that you were looking at me, yes, thank you for asking me how I feel. No, I thought that it was a great episode. Loved. I agree with Zach. Wonderful to hear from Jody. Definitely left me wanting so much more. It's very, I don't know if tantalizing is the right word, but certainly just hearing bits and pieces about Jody's life and kind of jumping ahead to experiences that Jody has had while in prison. Not an easy listen. Very frustrating and hard to just hear about things that are going on. But I'm so excited for us to all be involved. And certainly there are people who want to know, just to kind of tag on to what you were saying earlier about the transcripts and getting stuff mailed and all of that stuff. People are already clamoring to help however they can. Can they correspond with Jody? Can they send music to Jody and stuff like that? Do you have an answer for that yet?
Yeah. So on our website, I think Katie has on the website, because I gave her the inmate ID number. So the best way to communicate with Jody is through JPay. They have an app. It's super easy. You set up the JPay app, and then you can just email. I believe Jody has a tablet on their end. And you can just email back and forth. That's the best way to correspond with Jody. And all you need to do is look them up by their inmate ID number. Again, that should be on the website. That was weird. Sorry, something just happened on our stream. You'll be able to fix this, Erica. Was it that should be on the website. If not, like if you can't find it, their inmate ID number, I think somebody even posted it on our Facebook page. But also, if you just go to the Michigan Online Offender look up Joseph Hill, and you can get the inmate ID number. And with that, you can just pop onto JPay and communicate with them. The last email that I sent to Jody was asking, is there a way for them to listen to music or for someone to gift them music?
Great.
But they're on lockdown right now, so I haven't got that response back, because I believe there is. I don't know exactly how that'll work, so I'll let you know as soon as I hear from that.
Great. I had a lot of questions come up for this episode. Definitely my top question was also the top question from our very astute listeners who immediately picked up on it and were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So we had a bunch of people kind of weigh in with the same big question. So I thought we would start with that whenever you guys are ready.
We're ready.
Well, when I heard that just Jody mentioned in passing that their former foster mother was on their jury, I like had to full stop and go back and listen again, even though I was sure I had heard everything right. It was only for the purpose of like trying to mitigate my shock. And that it was just kind of like, oh, as an aside, like, by the way. So everybody, Ashton, Veronica, Rebecca, Christy, Sarah, everybody wants to know, how did that happen? Was that a known thing at the time? Is there more to the story? How?
The only thing I know about it right now, because we're going to go through in a minute here. I'll explain kind of the process too, because people had questions about this too. But I haven't like dug through the voir dire process yet to figure out how that happened. But my understanding is that it was known, because if anybody's never been on a jury or been through voir dire, they'll ask you, do you have any connection to anybody on the jury that are, the defendants, the prosecutors, the defense, the judge, anything, the police officers. So my assumption is that she would have said, yes, I used to be the foster mom. And then they would ask generally they'll ask, do you think you can still be objective? And apparently she said yes. And then neither side decided to strike her, because what happens is, it gets a little tricky because both sides they can strike anybody for cause, but then they also have their peremptory strikes where they can for no reason whatsoever. The problem is if somebody says, like in any case, they say, I know the cop, I know personally the police officer that was involved in this, and then they say, do you think that you can still be objective and fair? If they say yes, then you can't strike them for cause. You can try to make the argument to the judge.
Yeah.
So then you have to use a peremptory strike to get rid of them. And I would assume the defense, well, I don't know, because there was kind of that relationship didn't sound like it ended very well with Jody and the foster parent. So I don't know. I was shocked to hear it too, that the foster mother was on there. But when we get into the voir dire process, we'll talk about that, because I don't exactly know, just from what I've heard, because I haven't been through that part of the transcripts yet.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, so lots of kind of clarifications, lots of trying to build out from information that you let us in on for this episode. I don't know if we even have the answers yet or if they're coming in the future. Let's just jump in with Sarah, who says, Jody's girlfriend was called to testify, but saying her mom and kids said that Jody was home all night is hearsay. Did anyone bother calling her mom to testify? And I'll just add to that really quick. Probably should have set it up this way, but that piece was also so fascinating. The idea that, the way this case is processed, and maybe it speaks to how many cases are coming through that court and how many cases that, defense attorneys, public defenders, and prosecutors are dealing with. But the idea that, we all have seen, even if we're not true crime fans, even if you've just seen a couple procedurals on television or in films, the whole cliche of don't ask a question you don't know the answer to just feels so apt in this situation, as it would seem that the prosecutor just read the police file, never spoke to the detective. Like, where's the disconnect there that the prosecutor's like, have no idea? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think, and we're going to get pretty heavily into that this week in this week's episode. But no, I think the prosecutor spoke with the detective. The defense attorney was clearly extremely unprepared for this trial.
Right.
There's a situation that comes up in this week's episode that was such a glaring, huge, massive misstep by the defense. And it was very clearly from not being prepared, but it's also not entirely the defense attorney's fault, because so what's going on right now, like this episode you guys just heard has prompted me, like I'm on the horn all over the place right now, trying to figure out where documents are, who had them when. As an example, the timesheet was in the police file that was obtained by someone after the trial.
Mm.
I'm trying to figure out now, was the timesheet in the discovery that the defense attorney had? Because it's like in the file, it's in the police file, but it never comes up at trial. It's never, like, the defense never raises it at trial. The defense never brings it up. As far as we know, from what I'm hearing, the defense didn't have it or didn't realize they had it at trial.
Mm.
And you're going to hear that because of a lot of the way things were done, the defense wasn't worried about wasn't focused at all on work being the alibi. And it was
Wow.
either complete incompetence by the defense attorney, or things were hidden from the defense attorney leading up to the trial. As far as the mother, same thing. So this was some of the frustration you were hearing from me in this episode, and that's why I wanted you to hear in her words what Sherelle said when they said, well, you never told any investigators that your mother was home. And she's like, yes, I did. I mean, she said, they're lying. Yes,
Yeah.
I did. And by the way, she's handicapped and lives with me. I'm not saying she stopped by that night. She lives there.
Right.
Well, the problem is, and of course, we don't have a recording of that transcript. So imagine you're the defense attorney and all you have to work with is the police file. And you look at the report, and the report says Jody's home from work at 11. That's it. And then you'll hear in other episodes, there were, other witnesses where the report on them say that they picked up Sherelle at 11 o'clock. And then she says Jody was home at 11 o'clock. And then somebody else says that they picked Sherelle up or Sherelle picked them up. And so they're able to, like, paint this picture through the police reports that everybody's getting their times wrong, or and present it to the jury as though everybody's lying. But none of them are the people's actual words. So if the defense attorney, who I was told didn't even speak to Jody until like right before trial, so I had no idea what was going on. They're looking at the police reports. So if that's all they had, they didn't know until that moment in trial, which was during direct, right? That's the prosecutor put them up. The prosecutor's asking the questions, and and then that's when it comes out that her mom was home and her kids were home. The defense attorney had no idea, whether by them not doing their job or by the fact that they believed what was in the police reports.
I get that, but my point is that the prosecutor opened themselves up to have her on the stand say the police are lying.
Right.
Like, they opened that up. If they knew that Sherelle had said, if they're looking at the report, I understand why they think it's safe to ask that question on the stand, because the prosecutor's like, cool, she left. So there's no reason that she would know where Jody was. But then to have a conversation with the detective where they're like, I mean, was McGinnis like, by the way, she might say, oh, my kids and my mother live. I mean, I don't know why, as a prosecutor, you go down that line when there's every likelihood that she's going to be like, and by the way, other people live in that house and the police are lying if it's not in that report. That's a big deal. I mean, obviously, it didn't save Jody, but that's the kind of thing where I'm like, that seems like incompetence on the prosecutor's part.
Yeah, my guess is, is it the prosecutor? So what if we don't know, right? But what if there is the conversation and McGinnis just didn't tell them?
Right.
McGinnis gives the report, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean they didn't have a conversation.
Right.
But McGinnis like I'm telling you, this murder. Here's a fun fact. McGinnis gave us the original murder book, the complete original murder book. What McGinnis doesn't know is that I already have the complete original murder book. That's what I already had.
I mean, I guess he probably knows it now.
Just now figured it out. Yeah. Guess what, buddy? The timesheet was in the original murder book that was turned over in a FOIA request in the past after trial. And now the original murder book doesn't have the timesheet in it.
Oof.
Whoops. Oof.
There's a witness that in the original murder book that McGinnis gave me, there's one report of one interview. It references there were previous interviews. But in the prosecutor's file, that is the copy of the original murder book, there's reports for every single time that they talked to this person. So why are those things not in the original murder book now? It's a backup file of the investigative file in this case that used to be hundreds of pages and now is 137 pages.
Boy, that's not a great look.
Not at all.
I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable and honest and pure explanation for it. That's going to be my assumption until proven otherwise. Everybody in the chat is definitely looking for that clarification as to the status of the defense attorney. Is it a public defender or is it a private, like being paid by Jody or Jody's family?
It's public
attorney?
defender.
Yeah.
And there was an issue again, like I haven't dug into it enough to like fully present it, but from what I know right now is they had a court-appointed attorney that was working on the case for a long period of time that seemed to be doing a good job, and then something happened where that person got taken off the case and White got put on the case, and then White never talked to Jody until like right before the trial. That's what I've been told so far up now. That's all stuff we need to investigate. And what I was saying is, for when I'm on the horn right now, there was a time when the Innocence Project, the Cooley Innocence Project at Western Michigan University, had Jody's case, and they were and primarily what they're going to do is some DNA testing, and they weren't able to do anything because that's how these cases end up in my lap, because all those Innocence Project of Texas cases, this case needs a full investigation, and they're just not equipped for that. But they pulled a bunch of documents, and so right now I'm trying to find out, okay, when did you get these documents? Who did you get them from? Because like that's where like the timesheet came from. So I need to know, did they get that from the defense attorney? If so, this is ineffective assistance of counsel.
Right.
If you got the defense file and it wasn't in there, but then you got it in a FOIA request, then it's a Brady violation.
Right.
So like when I said earlier that I'm extremely confident we're going to overturn this conviction, I am extremely confident we're going to overturn this conviction. But now it's the game of trying to figure out where stuff came from, like who had what when. And unfortunately, the defense attorney has passed away now. He's not alive anymore. I think he died in 2017. So we're kind of I'm in the mode right now between Innocence Project, Attorney General's office, everybody trying to figure out where all this stuff came from and when things transpired. Right. But what's very clear is the games that are being played currently by the Benton Harbor Police Department or Public Safety Department in the FOIA requests they're giving me, they're games. Like I said, like to give me a file claiming that this is everything, the original murder book. Well, why in the prosecutor's file does the original murder book have all these reports in there that are now not in your report? Did someone take them out of the original murder book? And if so, when and why?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. So in the case, I know that we are not attorneys. If there's an attorney in the chat, feel free to chime in. But so in the situation where this happens, I'm sorry to just dwell on this, but to me, this is just such a mic drop, like crazy moment in the trial where the prosecutor has to object to the answer that is given to the prosecutor by the witness that the prosecutor is questioning. They have to object. And then the defense attorney's like, I don't have anything to do with any of this. But now you have this information. If you're the defense attorney, you've just heard during trial that unbeknownst to you, ineffective assistance of counsel or Brady violation, unbeknownst to you, there were other people at home who did not leave, who would be happy to testify that Jody was home. So if you're the defense attorney, are you just like, whoops, I guess we'll just let that go because yes, it can't be used by the jury because it's hearsay, but it's also information that doesn't have to be hearsay if you can contact the mother. Is that a situation where it's like, well, the ball's already rolling. You can't say, Your Honor, sidebar, I'd like to approach the bench. I had no idea. There was no information. I need to be given time. We need to do a recess. I need to find out if I knew this. And if I did, I'd like to be given the opportunity. If I didn't, I'd like to be given the opportunity to contact, you know what I mean? Or is the defense attorney just like, oh, wow, okay, so 3 people who could have whatever,
Yeah, we're gonna get into all that, and that's when earlier I said I was gonna go through process because there's a couple people where because like right now we're still in like overview, right? So like the first episode was just kind of laying out background. The second episode we got into like victimology, what happened that night. The third episode we're getting into the alibi, and then this week we're getting into like what are the main like how did they get convicted? Then we're going to start going through the detailed process of, okay, this is what happened in trial. This is what everybody testified to. And we're going to start breaking that stuff all down. Because there's a couple people, there was a listener that, like heard one little piece of something and like found online an appeals motion that has like a paragraph summarizing and referencing something that happened at trial. And they're like, no, but this happened, but it's not the full trial transcript. And I was like, we're going to get there. These seasons are long. So that's just know that's the process. We're going to go through every step of this trial along the way and go through because like there's obviously a lot more to Sherelle Moore's testimony. There's a lot more to everybody's testimony. Right now, we're just pulling out the pieces of them that explain and corroborate the things that we need now. For some people, LaShawn Harper, Princella Tobias that you heard from this week, Jody themselves, I was able to, okay, let me go personally go interview these people and ask them what happened. Other people, like I haven't been able to get a hold of Cornelius, I haven't been able to get a hold of Sherelle. For those people, I'll go through, okay, here's what they said at trial, so you know what was said there. So long story short, we're going to get into all of Sherelle's testimony when we get there. Right now, we're still trying to lay the basic groundwork of what happened here, and then we're going to dig into all the nitty-gritty details of it.
Okay. All right. Well, for all of you who had some great questions that build off of this whole conversation about the kids being there and the mom being there, sounds like we're going to put a pin in that. So hang in there because we can dive in more, hopefully very soon. Caroline says Bob mentioned that not long after Mario was shot, word on the street was Jody was the murderer. Who started this rumor? Was it the police or the actual killer? Was there someone in Jody's life that connected them? Why Jody?
It's another thing we're going to get into a bit this week, but I will tell you this. One of the first witnesses that was spoken to by police that night, within minutes of this happening, the police officer started saying to a witness, asking them about Jody and asking them about
that's so crazy,
the armed robbery. So like that's how it got around. Like nobody saw Jody there. Like even at trial, nobody saw Jody there. Nobody saw Jody going there. None of that happened. But it seems like from what I'm seeing so far that the police that were on the scene started putting that in people's heads right away because they were already suspecting Jody as being possibly involved in the robbery. And so like London, Officer London is the one that chased down Leon Newcomb and caught him that night of the robbery. He was there that night right away. And so he got there right away and recognized the car and is like, that's the same car that was involved in this other armed robbery. And they figured out pretty quickly, okay, maybe this has some kind of connection to that. And so they start asking questions. Those rumors start spreading to the point when Sherelle and Nadia come by and they walk up to the scene. People around the scene are like, they're saying Jody did this, because it's already like spreading around the crowd that quickly. That's why when she went home, she was, and she says, I went home, Jody's sound asleep in bed. I wake them up and they're like, they're saying that you just shot somebody. And Jody's like, what are you talking about? I've been here sleeping this whole time.
Yeah, that's I was wondering how that came about too, because it just seems so strange that it's like all of a sudden his name is, or their name is just out there immediately.
Yeah, and it's very like, and that's why I said it reminds me so much of the West Memphis 3 case. When right away they pull the bodies out of the ditch, and the probation officer says, "Oh, Damien Eccles finally did it. He finally killed somebody." And then immediately the investigation is not an investigation to figure out who the murderer is. The investigation is trying to build a case against this one person who they've already decided the murderer is.
Right.
And that's what's so frustrating about that. And you could hear my frustration in it in the episode is it didn't take long. I mean, I was shocked when I talked to LaShawn, and you guys kind of heard that part of the conversation, because I interviewed him the same way I interview anybody. First, tell me what happened. Let's go back up and go through some details of what happened. Let me find ways that we can corroborate what you're saying. And then it's okay. Well, how do you know? Because you said I never count on times and dates. Like I want to know, is there an anchor? How do you know? And when I was like, well, how do you know that you have the right date? He's like, because they came the next morning. They were there the next morning to talk to him. He told them then they were there late that night. And then I found out later after the interview that they came back again. I believe it was McGinnis came back again like a couple days later and got the timesheet from Kenya and gave it to them. And then they had it the whole time. So then they didn't have the document anymore to pin down what times were what. And also they didn't know when they needed an alibi for, and the timesheet was gone.
Interesting. Yeah, I think in the interview, doesn't LaShawn say it was the chief who came in the next day, and he didn't even remember if he said McGinnis came by later,
Yeah.
but that it was actually the chief who came initially to say like,
Right.
"Hey, this is going on."
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. Was the chief known to be at the crime scene? We know that the chief ate there, and it sounds like McGinnis ate there all the time too.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
You got to keep in mind it's a small department. There's not a whole lot of officers. The chief was obviously there in an investigative capacity. He was asking him about Jody's whereabouts.
right.
So, yeah, it sounded like for sure it wasn't McGinnis that was there right away first thing in the morning, but was there as part of the investigation, right?
Yeah.
That happened. And then, yeah, McGinnis came by later. He did talk to McGinnis later. And then I found out that Kenya also talked to McGinnis later.
Okay, gotcha. Well, while we're on the subject of the spotlight being shone on Jody so quickly, Jessica just wants to circle back about the armed robbery itself and says, "Did Jody have an alibi for the armed robbery? Why was everyone at that point so convinced that Jody was involved? Was it just because of Leon and the known relationship between them, or?"
We're going to dig into that pretty heavily.
Okay.
As I said, I don't know. It certainly seems like Jody is alibied pretty well for the armed robbery too, because Jody was on tether at the time of the armed robbery and had a curfew. And I know that I've seen through part of like Sherelle's testimony and some other. The problem is when you're reading the police reports, there's stuff missing from the police reports. There are things that are clearly missing from them, so it's hard to track some of this down. But it's that armed robbery happened sometime after 10 p.m. and I believe Jody's curfew was 9 p.m., which means if they're on tether, there really shouldn't be a possibility they were there. You're going to hear later that they kind of the whole gold spray painted shotgun. That they found like some gold spray paint at Jody's house, and they found like a box of shotgun shells at the house, and Jody had spray painted their rims on their car gold, and so that was like their big evidence on it. But then I'm also hearing after talking to some people there like that wasn't a Jody thing, that was a neighborhood, like a lot of people were doing that.
Well, even if Jody did it, they did have a relationship to Leon at some point, so it also could have just been like, well, Leon came over and used my spray paint. I mean, that doesn't, you know what I mean? That doesn't put someone at the scene.
Right.
Well, and Jody says in their interview too that they were staying with Sherelle because they were on house arrest, which is what the tether is. If for the people that don't understand that's essentially what the tether is, that they're on house arrest, what they would call house arrest.
Yeah, and it's an ankle monitor, and it tracks. And we were looking up last week because we thought in kind of real time, and I don't even know what Erica left in and didn't leave in about that because I didn't listen to the episode, but because some of the units will actually track your GPS location at all times, so they could tell exactly whether Jody was there or not. But what they all have is you'll have a monitor in your house, like a transmitter, receiver, whatever in your house, and it's set to an alarm that you have to be in your house by your curfew time whenever you're supposed to be there. So like if the curfew set by the tether device was 9 p.m., that would mean that if Jody wasn't at the house by 9 p.m., alarms go off, it immediately calls the police, and everybody is out looking for them right away. So it should be very, very, very easy based on what I've read so far to figure out if Jody was involved in that robbery or not.
Do we know when their tether was released or anything like that?
It's all the thing is, I hesitate to talk because yes, I know, but I haven't confirmed it with documents. It's just things people have told me.
Got it.
Right. So like Sean told me that he thought that the day of the murder was the day Jody went, like why there's a gap in that timesheet, because he had to go to like an anger management class, or excuse me, they had to go to an anger management class.
There is like a 3-hour gap. If you haven't seen it, there's like a 3-hour gap in the middle of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they said Jody was there, got there at like 1 p.m, and then had to leave to go to an anger management class, and then got off of the tether. Like they finally took the tether device off that day. That's what I've been told. I have not confirmed that yet.
Boy, we can wait to talk about that. I can imagine how that would really go towards like the sort of legend building of like, and they were just waiting to get off tether so they could commit this heinous crime. Like you could see that
Yeah.
going towards, the building of a story, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
Um, Julia says, I asked this in a separate post, but it got a lot of interest, so I thought I'd repeat it here. I noticed that Bob reiterated this timeline. Jody clocks out, then hangs out with their drinking coworkers, then gets a ride from Cornelius. However, LaShawn mentioned that the supervisor wouldn't have signed Jody out immediately after the shift ended, that the supervisor likely would have waited until the group was done to sign them out, i.e. like it's kind of a thank you for working so late that maybe you would still get to drink a little bit and then you wouldn't be signed out until after you were actually like walking out the door. And so Julia says, given that we're trying to work in worst case scenarios as far as constructing a timeline for the night, is it worth eliminating that particular 20 minutes or so? Could Kenya be contacted to see how she most likely would have handled signing staff out in this type of situation? Thanks.
Yeah. So Sean contacted Kenya to confirm that she had come through there that day. So the way that, first of all, the way that worked out, when I was talking to Sean, I was like, well, who signed? And that's when he said, well, the employee never signed themselves out. A supervisor signed them out, either me or my sister or whoever it was. And he's like, so it would have probably been me. Well, then when I talked to Jody was like, Kenya had come through that night and signed me out. And so then I sent the timesheet to Sean and he's like, oh yeah, that's Kenya's handwriting. She's the one that did it. And then I was like, was she there that night? He contacted her and she said, yeah, she had come through and signed them out. But didn't remember much other than that, like many details. Like they remembered that they were there that night, they signed them out, and that was the end of it. So for me speaking, if I spoke that in an absolute, I didn't mean to, and I shouldn't have, because I don't know it. There is some ambiguity there whether the drinking happened before or after they signed out. Based on what Sean was saying, if it was Sean who signed them out, then it would have. Then he's like, and even he said, I probably would have not. I would have waited till after we were leaving.
Right.
When we were leaving to sign them out. But then now we know it wasn't Sean who signed them out. Based on what Jody's telling me, it was Kenya had like popped, just like Princella did, had just popped in,
right,
and then signed them out. So it could have been before the drinking, or perhaps during the drinking, but nobody knows. Kenya, from my understanding, is not able to like say for sure that they know exactly what happened there. They just come through and sign them out. So yeah, I don't know as far as that. So yeah, in a worst case scenario, and I thought I did work through like let's go worst case scenario and just say they signed out at 12:05 and left immediately.
Right.
Then that gets them home at like 12 minutes after.
12:17, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Or well, it's like 6 or 7 minute drive. So like 12:13, and then and then if they turned around and went straight to the crime scene. Then it would have been, around 12:20 that they could have gotten to the car, 12:17, whatever I had come up with. Mm-hmm. That also takes away the part that is confirmed by both Jody and Cornelius, that when they got to Jody's house, they sat out in the parking lot talking for about 20 minutes before Jody even went in. That also ignores Sherelle saying they had the argument when they got into the house. So like, it really doesn't matter. Right. Especially when you hear this week's episode, it really doesn't matter. Yeah. Whether the drinking happened before or after or anything like that. There's just Jody couldn't have been there.
Right.
Any way you shake it, Jody couldn't have been there.
And just as far as timesheets go, just for clarification, because obviously timesheets have been a big part of this podcast and the conversation around Adnan. It was normal for the supervisor to be the person's hand signing, like there would be handwritten. It wouldn't be like a time clock where this is like some kind of aberrant situation where it's like suddenly a handwritten timesheet appeared. This is the traditional, like, this is how this job clocked in and out, with the accountability of the supervisor being the person acknowledging, yes, you are signing out now. Like, that's all normal, right? It's not just that one night.
Yeah. And I see somebody in the chat says like, that's kind of strange that like, it's not literally that's how Erica's, when she first started here, when she was hourly, we just had a paper sheet just like that, and I would just write. Sometimes she would write them, sometimes that, but I would always like go through and verify and write in the hours. It was normal. I used to work at a golf course that was like that, and you had to. We had like time cards, like you would put in a punching time sheet, but we didn't have a time clock. And when we left, we had to take the card to the boss, and the boss would write the time in it when we left. So and also somebody pointed out, they're like, oh well, it says on the timesheet that the employee is supposed to sign it, but it's actually the supervisor who signed it. And why? Like, this is like a thing from Staples or Office Depot. It's a generic timesheet that it says some stuff on it, but they just had their way of doing it. And the way they did it is they said they had it they had the timesheets all like they would like staple them or pin them up to like sound like a bulletin board by the back door. And so they would just have all of them up there, and then the supervisors would go through and write the times in when people were leaving.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So some questions around the crime scene diagram, the numbers that you discovered that at first you and Erica thought might be addresses. Aaliyah says, in regards to the crime scene diagram with a series of numbers, if this document was made and used by law enforcement, wouldn't we expect the times to be in military 24-hour time, i.e. using the first time listed as example, since it's just after midnight, it shouldn't be 12:25 as written in the diagram. It should be 00:25. Is it not official documentation? Is it somebody who's just making a note of the times unofficially? Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it's not times. So that's kind of the question around that. And Lynn also was kind of trying to figure out, like, are people taking different types of notes? Are they like accounting for time differently and all that?
Couple things. One, we don't know what those numbers are. I've concluded that they're probably times. Yeah, because based on the fact, obviously, they're not addresses. There are spans. They look like times. As far as the military time thing, because it was the same thing for the fire department. Like in our official reports, we type them out. You type everything out in military times. But when nobody talks like that, right? So especially at midnight. The weirdest one of all of them is the 12 o'clock hour. You have the midnight hour to say it's 0012, or it's 012 or 0012, whatever. So that's always a common timer. People would say 12, whatever.
Well, I think the other thing that we need to make sure that's addressed is the fact that this isn't an official report. This was chicken scratch on the side, handwritten chicken scratch on the side. This wasn't like somebody had wrote a report. This was something that was jotted quickly.
Yeah, and that was the other point. Yeah, exactly. That is, this wasn't typed into a report. Someone was drawing that out and then just wrote that stuff. And so, like, if that information was transcribed into an actual report, then I would expect it to say 0025 to 0027. But yeah, just that somebody just writing it, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, at least for me, in my experience with all the firemen, law enforcement that I work with, like your brains just don't work that way. Like, I'm looking at the clock, it's 12:25. I'm gonna write 12:25. When I type it into a report, I'm going to do it in military time.
So all the windows seem to be 2 to 3 minute windows too. What do we know what like an average 911 call would be? I know I tried to look it up. There's no like averages out there. I mean, they say a response time, they try to get somebody within 30 seconds in direction of it, but there's no actual like length of time.
No, it's all, I mean, so when I for the first 5 years I was on the fire department, we still had a fire phone, which means like we took the 911 call. So if somebody called,
back to Pinion Pines here.
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody called 911, the dispatchers would then transfer the call to us. And then we had to take the information. And so I've had them that were 25 seconds. You get on the phone, they're like, my house is on fire. This is my address. And we're like, all right, we're on the way. Hang up, hit the tones, and we go. Other times are just, you can't get them to shut up. Like, you never know. You never know. I would think 2 minutes is probably around an average time, because sometimes like a good dispatcher will, once they know what needs to happen, because they use computer aided dispatch, like through their computer, they'll start sending units out or something like that, or they'll send a message to another dispatcher to start hitting the radio while they continue talking. There's just a lot of variables there.
Okay. Because they all seem to be very like normal. It's like 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 2, 3, 2, or so.
Yeah. And this was also at the time that Benton Harbor was one of the few public safety departments that had their own dispatch. And that's what was going on with us too, back at this same time period in 2001. There was a county dispatch that dispatched most of the public safety departments in the county. And then there was, some like where I was at, and like the city of Niles had their own dedicated dispatch. Benton Harbor had their own dedicated dispatch. So the procedures are off a little bit. They did things their own way. So it's harder to know. Now everybody is dispatched by the county. The county has one dispatch center. 911 calls go to one place. They dispatch everybody. But back then, Benton Harbor had their own, which is unfortunate for us too, because if it was at the county, I would easily be able to get what I'm looking for, which is the dispatch log. But since it was, of course, at the Benton Harbor Public Safety Department, or at that time, police department, who had their own dispatch, they control the flow of that information.
Right. And just to put a button on that temporarily, to reiterate, like nothing on the diagram where those numbers were found, there's nothing there's nothing about that corresponding information, the official information, that would help explain why those numbers were scribbled on there.
No idea. Like we literally went there and went to the place where they're drawn on the map. Like, what did these numbers mean?
Sure.
And we're like, why are these addresses are all none of these? What? And that's when I was like, oh, they're time spans, which I'm very confident they're time spans. I just don't know what exactly they are. It could be 911 calls. I don't know, but that doesn't seem to jive either. Because there's all this crazy ambiguity around the time. Like, that is the most insane part about this case. And if it's not already becoming obvious, it will on Sunday, it seems to be very intentional that we don't know exactly when and we also learned Sunday that they did pull, not only that they did pull the dispatch tape. They have the recording of all the traffic that was happening over the radio when all this stuff happened. So they knew exactly when this happened without question. And they said, I'll tell you this, I can 100% without any question at all promise Mario Lowe's was not murdered at 12:40. I guarantee you, it is proven beyond all doubt that is a lie. He was not murdered at 12:40.
All right. We hate when you drop those little breadcrumbs about upcoming episodes, but it makes us also very excited and interested. I know we've talked about this a little bit last week, and I know that I'm sure there's more coming on this, but certainly this latest episode did prompt people like Brian and Lilius to say, why, Jody? What was there a grievance there? We know you made it clear that, Jody had encounters with law enforcement, but we still don't have a clear picture of what that relationship with the department would have been like and why they would potentially have been targeted, other than that this person had a relationship with the other person in the Mario robbery, potentially.
That question is one of the reasons it's killing me that I can't get Jody on the phone right now. Because I've heard rumblings. That there was a history between McGinnis and Jody. I'm not even going to get into what those were because it's all just hearsay, but I want to hear from Jody. Number one, if they're saying that's true and what those things were, but because I'll straight up say it from what it looks like to me. And you've never heard me say this before. You've always, in every season, anytime even there's some corruption, there's all the stuff that we obviously are able to prove. I've always said, like, this was not a frame job. Like, nobody's going after trying to go after this one person. That was just the easy way out. This looks like a frame job to me. This looks very much like there was a concerted effort to convict Jody of this crime when they obviously could not have committed it. And what we learned from Sean, they knew they could not have committed it within 12 hours of it happening. Like, this is the only time you have ever heard me say this, and I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying from what I'm seeing, this looks to me like Jody was intentionally framed for this crime.
Yeah. Well, you said, you always say about wrongful conviction cases when you're reviewing them initially, when you're just taking that very first look, when someone is claiming innocence, that when you look at something closer, the case clarifies as falling apart versus it starts to make more sense. So it sounds like, based on everything we are learning, even now at the beginning stages, like, you had strong reasons to go, well, hold on. Usually I have to look a little deeper than this,
Yeah, that's, I always say that when I'm screening cases, I always say if you like time, technology, and attention to detail should make a case stronger. And so I always say, like, when I get a case and people send me this and send it to me and they're like, here's all the reasons why I think this person's innocent. If I look at the prosecution's case and I start to put a microscope on it, 9 times out of 10, and a lot of the ones they send us, I'm like, no, I don't buy it. I've had people that, lawyers that I've had Zoom calls with that went through a whole pitch process with cases with me. And it's like, I asked 3 questions and I'm like, like, you didn't, it's just, to me, you're making a better case for the prosecutor. This is not getting stronger.
Right.
And we're not interested. But if I start looking closer and things start getting weaker and the case starts crumbling, then it's like, okay, there may be something going on here. I've never seen one like this. I've never seen a case where you just like you just pull back the curtain a little bit and
Mhm.
there's the wizard. You know what I mean? Like what?
The
How
only
did
one
this
I can
happen?
the only one it reminds me of a little bit was it George, which was a very short, which
Yeah, yeah,
took
yeah.
very little time because it was like, this person is not 5'8", this person is well over 6 feet.
Right.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, and there's a
What
lot
are
of
we
them,
even
like,
doing here?
like Sandy's case, like on its face, like in a very practical way. You're like, this
Yeah,
is insane. She's locked in a
yeah,
closet with like, but you still have to go through the like the
right.
process of like figuring all that out. And this one, the first step we always do is like to kind of try to profile the scene, look for an alibi, and it's like, what the most real line you heard in that episode this week was me saying, if we use the actual times from this case, this conversation is stupid.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
too stupid to even be talking about. And that's when I started. It's like, wait, like, surely these detectives are not this stupid. Surely they're not. To like 1 + 1 = 2. The crime happened at this time. We know exactly where the person you think did it was during that time. They didn't do it. Let's find out who did do it.
Right.
But it sure seems like it was like, well, we'll find a way to make it fit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even seem like they had to no one pressed them to even try to erode the credibility of, oh, your friends will give you an alibi, or oh, you were closer to your coworkers than people know, so they could probably lying for you. Like all these people would lie for you. This community's broken. Like anyone will do any. Like it doesn't even seem like they were tasked to even make up any of that. It was just like way too easy for this to happen,
No,
which
they
is
didn't.
really disconcerting.
None of these people had any like real loyalty to Joe. Brincella, part of the interview, we didn't play her whole interview, but like she wanted to fire him. She came in and she told me, she's like, what's going on? Well, you heard LaShawn say that told her like they were in here looking for Jody about a shooting, and she's like, I said, get rid of him. We're a new business. We don't need some gangbanger in here that was murdering somebody. Fire him. And he was like, and Sean said, it was when you came in to check on the lights, like that was the night. And she's like, oh, well, he was here. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
And this is referring all, as everyone remembers, this is all in the context of them understanding him as Joseph, like understanding
right,
Jody
yes,
as Joseph, and those pronouns being used, just to be
yes.
mindful of that. But those were the conversations around that. Yeah. That's crazy. Brian and a bunch of other folks, Maureen and Joni and Christy, interested in any cell phone data. I think this came up last week too. Will there be cell phone data to help support or not support any of this stuff in the actual case files?
The funny thing about framing a person for murder that didn't do it is, you know what you don't want to do? Find evidence.
Mm.
Because what they could have done is get the call logs and find out when was Sherelle calling the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
What they could have done, I believe, DeMario had a cell phone. I believe they could have found out where DeMario was located, or what calls they were making, or for some victimology, any of that. I haven't yet to see anything like that. Everything exactly what these listeners are asking. It's the same way my brain works. Like, okay, well, how can we prove this? What can we use? How can we use technology or anything, any anchor to try to figure out what's going on here? I've not seen any of that. I know none of it came out at trial. If it's in there, obviously there's gaps in the police file too. But no, it doesn't look like they made any effort to actually figure out who killed DeMario.
Well, I think you've said it. I've heard it several places. You don't want to find bad evidence.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to, because again, I can't stress this enough. If I'm right about this, if everything we're hearing from the witnesses we've just heard up to this point, they knew, McGinnis knew the very next morning that Jody was not responsible. So it's not like they thought, even like Pinion Pines, like they were working that angle and they were really pushing it for a while and they thought it was Javier, and then they were working on Robert. And then once they finally figured it out, then they stopped with the bad evidence because they didn't want to make it any worse. They knew, and the reason the investigation is shit is because they decided it was Jody. Looks like they found out it couldn't have been Jody. So then they're like, well, there's no sense. Like, what are you going to investigate? Any path you find is going to take you somewhere else. And that's why I say, like, this feels to me like they actually framed him, which is insane. I don't know why, if that's the case. And maybe I'm wrong about it, but it's like, this is a very, very obvious case.
Well, I'm going to stay as objective as possible.
You should.
I am ready, willing, I'm wide open to any and all evidence and proof showing that, in fact, that is not at all what happened, or showing that the pressure was coming from elsewhere. And if it was a frame job, finding out exactly who would be responsible for that. I am wide open. I know that sounds sarcastic, but I am just as uncomfortable as everybody else when we find out that police are up to no good. It's very uncomfortable. It's very unsettling. I would love for us to be more wrong than right in situations like this for society's sake.
Oh,
So I'm ready. I'm here. Hey, guys, I'm ready. Show me that Bob's wrong, please.
Yeah, well, and just in everything you said, like you said, you sounded a bit. You're being honest. Like you're really trying to keep an objective view at it. I'm doing the same thing. I realize that's like at this point,
You know more than we do, though.
I
You
know more than we do,
even just as simply as you know what the next episode is, and we don't.
and I'm to the point where I'm like, you have to show me like I've looked at their evidence. I haven't even done my own investigation yet. I've looked at their evidence. And so think about this. Just what we know now, we have a timesheet that says Jody was at that job until at least 12:05. At least. We have the 2 employees that were working with them that night, both confirming they were there late that night. We have Jody and the other employee with no connection to them. They just recently had met, confirming they gave them a ride home, and they sat there and talked for 20 minutes before you went in. You have the ex-girlfriend saying that we had an argument and then he went to bed and then I left. Which, by the way, the murder had already long since happened before most of this stuff happened. I cannot sit here and pretend that I don't know that Jody's innocent. I can't even make sense of it. I can't even construct a make-believe unicorn fairy dust theory of how Jody could have been involved at this point.
Yeah.
So for those of you that love it when you say I'm biased, you got me. This time I am. This time I am. I have through now, not based on preconceived notions, but based on simple investigative tasks. I'm convinced Jody's innocent. And it infuriates me because not only what's happened to Jody all these years, but also, like, did anybody give a shit who killed DeMario? Anyone?
It sure doesn't seem like it.
Well, I hate to break it to everybody, but I don't think that constitutes bias then. Ooh, sorry to make it awkward, everybody, but if I'm biased because I think a bee dies after it stings someone, that's pretty backed up by science.
Right. We'll see. They can have it. They can have the bias argument.
Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for the heavy hitters. But I did want to touch on this. We spoke about it a little bit, but I don't think the tape was rolling, as it were, last week. When I mentioned that someone last week had a question about the cover art for the season. Caroline, last week had said, "Can you tell us more about the cover art for the season?" You had mentioned before, as you drop that image, that there were some Easter eggs in there. There's probably still some that you don't want to quite give away yet, but could you just tell us more about it?
Well, I mean, Zach talked about the Easter eggs, and I feel like you overhyped it for me because there's not a whole lot there. Yeah, so the whole cover art, it's just a aerial map of the area showing that the river that divides St. Joe and Benton Harbor there. That's obviously a picture of Jody. There's the Benton Harbor Public Safety Department images on there, but then the artwork that is from a picture that Jody had sent through JPay to another case advocate a while ago, and it kind of made its way to me. It was a picture of Jody, and then they had written, and people who have been wondering what that says, it says la-di-da. And because that is Jody's kind of nickname in prison, like a lot of people call them Da or la-di-da. So the colorful piece that's on there, that's actually Jody's artwork. How they had signed their name on that was la-di-da with the symbol and stuff on the bottom of it. So I wish there was more little trinkets that I had hid in there, but that's all of
great.
it.
No, Easter eggs, it's less Easter eggs and more just kind of a kind of cool representation of what the season is all about and who Jody is. And I love knowing that about the nickname. That's definitely new information.
Yeah, because when the first couple episodes came out, that the people were like, "Does that say Jody?" But it doesn't. It says Lottie.
I think
Dot.
when I said Easter eggs, I was thinking because we dropped it before the season started. So
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
a good
it was
point.
Easter eggs then.
Yeah.
It
People
was
were
Easter eggs
asking.
then.
Yeah, it was Easter eggs.
It definitely was.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say too, and I know this is like out of sync with everything we've been talking about, but we didn't get any questions about Jody talking about their experience in prison. But I did just want to acknowledge that, obviously, I thought that Jody spoke with such compassion about being put into a room with people who did have real mental illness and real challenges and probably weren't being taken care of or treated for those illnesses the way they deserve to be, even if they are prisoners. They are human beings. Our health is paramount. We all know that Sandy has struggled so much and has actually tried to move things forward for other prisoners. When Jody said, I was attacked by someone who was not being properly medicated, I just thought they spoke about that very compassionately, especially when we're talking about someone who ultimately caused them to lose the vast majority of their vision in one eye. I thought that was really compassionate, and I thought it was really interesting to hear. That's why I think so many of us are so excited to hear more from Jody directly, just about the experience of getting permission to go on hormones while in prison. I think is huge. It's really interesting, but also being surrounded by people who think that being trans is a sickness, is a sin, all of those things, and just getting that perspective. I'm really looking forward, even though I think it's going to be heartbreaking at times, to hear more about that whole just way of life and the existence of being in that situation under those circumstances. So I'm so glad that you gave us a little sprinkling of that.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, and by the way, you guys can thank Janet. Kind of saved the episode this week because I sent it to her to review it. But it was one of those where obviously we had the episode planned about the alibi, but I was able to speak with Jody a couple of times and get little bits of recording done. And I just wanted you guys to meet them. And when we had put together like the piece at the beginning with Jody and then into the alibi, it felt clunky. But we're like, it'll probably be okay. So we sent it to Janet to review, and she's like, the word we both used was disjointed. So Janet suggested the 1 minute of vocals in there to explain why it was clunky, made it a little bit better. But it was sometimes episodes like that are hard to write because I have like the investigative work that we want to get done, but it's like I have this piece over here that I think you guys need because it's been a while since we had a season where you can actually get to know the person that we're trying to help. And so I didn't want to get, and we start running through it from a production standpoint. Like, when can we get to an episode where we can really, use this? And there's not anything coming up soon where it makes sense. So we're just going to do it. It's also tricky. I wish because like when we had Ed season in season 2, Ed would get 30 minutes on the phone. And if we got disconnected, he could just call me right back.
Yeah.
With Jody, they'll be like, okay, there's this 2-hour window where I might get the phone. And so we got to wait. And hopefully I'm in here where I can get to the soundboard and everything when they call, if they call. And then sometimes they'll call and they're like, okay, we have 10 minutes. And so it's it's so hard to just have.
It goes by like that. Ugh.
Yeah. And there's been a couple of times where they've called and, Eric and I have been out in the office and we just sat and just chatted for a little bit just to chat with them. But then when we're trying to like get something, so when you heard that, the second piece where they were talking about their life in prison, and then they get into talking about the biography that they were writing. I didn't have it in. I don't remember if it was still in the audio where they came in and said you have 1 minute remaining, but like that's what happens.
Yeah.
Is we're like in the middle of talking, and then the voice pops in and goes, "You have 1 minute remaining," and then it turns into, "Okay, real quick, Bob, before it's over with, I want to make sure that you know that I'm writing this thing, and I'm going to send you some stamps, and I'm going to do this," and then like mid sentence, boop, it's over. Like that's the end of it, and then it's like, well, maybe they can call tomorrow. And then they go on lockdown and you can't hear from them for 2 weeks. So yeah, I wish we could have like a long form where we could just chat for a long time, but it's usually.
Let's get them out. Then we can have lots of long chats.
That's what I would like to do. I would like to.
I'm just happy we got to hear from Jody. We needed to hear from them, and this is great.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We got a lot of work to do. I think you guys should be Are we done with questions? Because I'm about to go into my little. Oh, good.
Please. Go for it.
So we do. We have a lot of work to do. And this is fascinating for me. It's a super easy one to investigate so far. To piece things together, I want to thank some listeners who, and that's how this works, right? That's all crowdsourced. Everybody does their part, and we've already had instances, which you're going to hear on Sunday, where I break stuff down, I put the documents out, and people immediately, the one I mentioned, the one person that like had shared a little bit of like an appeals document, and that person is actually like disagrees with me seemingly about everything always. But so they were kind of putting it out to counter something I said, and it was something I knew about, but I wasn't planning on getting into it yet. And then that conversation spurred another listener to notice a few things from the documents that were already up, and then that information from both of them allowed me to like piece together something pretty revealing about the case, and we're going to be talking about that on Sunday. So make sure you tune in on Sunday. Make sure you come back in here. And for those of you that are listening to this on Friday and you're thinking, when can I join these YouTube lives? Because I want to be a part of it. Because we do have a bunch of people in the lives chatting live with us. It's Wednesdays at noon Eastern time. If you're on YouTube, if you go to the Truth and Justice Podcast YouTube channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell. It'll tell you when we're going live, but usually it's every Wednesday at noon. With that being said, we will talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
All right. Off with the audio. Hour. That's an hour.
I
almost made it through without getting emotional, but the la-di-da pushed me over the edge, which I already knew. As you know, I already knew that, but I was like...
Yeah. And there's like, I haven't... I really enjoy talking to Jody. Like, they're so personable and
that comes through right away.
Yeah, and they're in like such a horrible situation, but they're always laughing and giggling, and they have this laugh where they're just like, it just cracks me up every single time.
I love it.
Yeah, so I like want you guys to hear more of that, as we go along. But hopefully we'll be able to do that. We do need to end. We can't be rambling on for very long because we got stuff to do. Janet's crying.
Let's do it. I know.
Yeah, you got to.
I'm fine.
You got dog issues. I made it through without crying this time.
I want to see if you can see this photo. I took this photo a minute ago. This is how Janet was froze on my screen for like 20 minutes.
Was she?
I was very
drunk.
Yeah. I was very, very drunk.
For like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Very drunk.
Do you have a setting on your thing where like when you're crying, it freezes you into a smile so no one knows it's happening?
Yep. It's a really sophisticated piece of AI.
Yeah. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and end this thing. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks,
I got
everybody.
work to do. I got an eye appointment. I got to pee. There's a lot going on.
Got to let the dog out.
The dog's out. The dog's out, and the dog's gone and safely at the dog park. So that part worked out. But
excellent. All right,
cool.
Janet, love you. Thank you.
Love you guys.
Love you, patrons. And these are everybody. Everybody's here. We love everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.